This episode is brought to you by Podbean, the easiest, most affordable option to get started in podcasting. Stay tuned to hear how you can get your first month of Podbean for free. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Committed Critics, a pop culture podcast where we're not only committed to our opinions, but also each other. Aww. I'm Kevin Lau.
I'm Ryan Davis.
And I'm Zachary Wright. And we have another special guest star this week. Man, we're just filling up with guests these last couple weeks, guys. We're doing great on this front.
Yeah.
But anyway, special guest, who are you?
My name is Ty Bourland. Thanks for having me on, guys. I'm from the Southern Illinois region, currently working towards a master's degree to teach English.
Nice.
And I've also got a weekly podcast with Why Is with Ty and Dan on multiple podcasting platforms and including YouTube.
Yeah,
Woo!
no, I mentioned Why Is on the show a couple times. It's an MCU recap podcast. So if you like keeping up with the MCU and having nice, intelligent discussions about it, this is the way to go. Danny, your co-host, is actually going to be joining us next week for our SpongeBob episode. Ooh,
Both halves of Ty and Dan.
yeah. So yeah, we'll have Ty and Dan back to back to crossover. And then I'm also appear on the show for the Civil War episode a few weeks ago. So if you want to check that out as well, you're totally welcome to. Today we're not talking about SpongeBob or Danny. Sorry, Danny. Today we're talking about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the recent show on Disney Plus with Anthony Mackie, Sebastian Stan, the whole MCU crew. We're going to go ahead and have some spoiler-free thoughts, and then we will, after that, we will dive into spoilers. But quick, spoiler-free thoughts. I'm going to lead us off. Falcon and Winter Soldier, I thought the best of the character work doesn't quite reach the heights of WandaVision, but in the worst of Falcon and Winter Soldier is far lower than WandaVision. However, the social commentary, as muddled as it gets most of the time, is still valid, has its moments, and sticks the rough landing. It's more of I like the payoff of it. I like the ending.
Yeah.
It's a lot of the setup that's the problem. Like it doesn't. It's kind of an incohesive setup, and then it leads to this ending. It's like, well, if this is the ending you're going for, the setup needs to be way different.
Right.
So I do think I didn't hate the show. I mean, there are definitely moments I didn't like, but overall, the main story idea, I was like, this is cool, could be better. I just wish the setup was a lot more cohesive. So I'm giving it a 5 out of 10. The nice neutral 5 out of 10.
And with that setup, Kevin, I think we'll talk about that after the break about what some of the
for sure
issues. Yeah. So,
Ryan, what are your thoughts?
See, I'm on the opposite side. So when I heard about Captain America and the Winter Soldier, I heard about Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Spoilers.
Honestly,
Big spoilers.
when I found, when I heard about just the show and most of the Marvel shows, I was not hyped for them at all. And this one, I was just kind of like, well, it exists. I don't know why we're having this. And then, honestly, by the end of this show, I was very much hyped and on board. I actually am excited to see where the MCU goes because I enjoyed the characters in this. I think they did better with a lot of their characters than they did with WandaVision. Because in WandaVision, I honestly enjoyed more of the side characters than I enjoyed the main characters.
Interesting.
I did not care about Wanda or Vision until probably episode 7 or 8.
Interesting.
I was really hoping Wanda would just mess some people up. But in this, I was interested in Sam and Bucky and even John Walker and Sharon. And Zemo. I wanted to see where their stories would go. And I enjoyed a lot of where they went. I kind of did not like where Sharon's went at the end, but more on that in the spoiler talk. But John Walker, I think, was a good foil for Sam. I kind of list him as he's what America is versus what it should be. And I'll have more to say on that again, also in spoilers. But the social commentary for this definitely landed for me, but that's also because, I have personal relation to it.
Jesus.
For sure.
But
about you,
honestly,
Zach?
like I said,
Oh, sorry.
yeah, my rating for it is probably a 9 out of 10.
Nice.
For me, I just love Sam Wilson. Like seeing his story finally come about. Like, I mean, Ryan already kind of blew the lid off of it, but like watching him become Captain America, which was what the idea of what the show was going to be.
Not necessarily a spoiler.
Right. Yeah. Just kind of what the show, we were guessing what the show would be about. Kevin and I talked off screen about what Tyler will bring up like later, and the show would be served better as a bingeable format, which I agree with. But you guys will talk about that later. I kind of stole Kevin's wording on this next part. So I said the highs of Falcon and Winter Soldier, actually, I enjoyed them, like, not in terms of character. The highs, like the big moments of Falcon and Winter Soldier are higher than the highs of WandaVision, but the lows of Falcon and Winter Soldier are lower than the lows of WandaVision. So like this fight scene where Sam's flying through the helicopter, like kicking ass, I enjoyed that. I think that was higher than like Wanda beating Agatha. Just as a comparison, not saying like one is better than the other. I'm just saying in comparison. Overall, I really enjoyed what was shown. Sam becoming Captain America was very important, and I enjoyed that a lot. I love Psych. I love their chemistry, Bucky and Sam's chemistry. Yeah, probably 8 out of 10 for sure. And Tyler.
Okay, yeah. I thought the show brushed on many heavy topics, but it failed to focus and address those. We got a lot of topics introduced, and then it was left to hang there and kind of sit with the audience, which is good, to provoke thought in the audience. That's how you keep that audience engagement. But also the other half of that coin of keeping the audience engaged is fulfilling that, like providing more commentary on that throughout the show.
Okay.
I think like a more narrowed approach would have served the show and its characters better, which would have ultimately strengthened the plot. I gave it a 6 out of 10. I will say that there were a ton of points where I was super into the show. The opening episode of when John Walker's running away from the authorities after he killed that flag smasher, like that fight right there, those times I was really into it. And then there were other points where it kind of left me scratching my head. But
Fixing the boat.
Fixing the boat. It was a metaphor, Kevin, for their relationship.
It's a metaphor.
It's a metaphor.
So with that spoiler-free thoughts out of the way, I'm now issuing a spoiler warning. Everything from we talk about from here on out is going to be a spoiler for the show. So if you haven't seen it, it's on Disney Plus. 6 episodes. Each of them are just under an hour long, so you can binge through that pretty quickly. And as we were saying, it works better in the binge format. So diving into spoilers, what is one thing you liked about the show? Ryan, let's go ahead and start with you.
Okay, well, what I liked about the show is probably... so I said I enjoyed Sam, I enjoyed Bucky, but I probably say like my favorite part of it is seeing how all these character dynamics work together. Because I would never have thought Zemo... When I heard about the trailer, I would never have thought Zemo working with Sam and Bucky. I would never have thought Sharon would, kind of be playing both sides. I definitely would not have thought Wakanda would show up in this at any point whatsoever.
He kind of didn't.
I mean, here's the thing. Wakanda, the Dora Milaje coming in and beating John Walker's ass was probably one of my favorite parts of this entire series.
Presence of Wakanda, yes.
Looking strong, John. Looking strong.
Wakanda, no.
Okay, well they showed like a tree or something, but
we got budget Wakanda. So
random field.
I got black women beating up a white man. It felt good, but no, overall, like I enjoyed watching these characters, and I enjoyed hearing about Isaiah Bradley because I did not know about Isaiah Bradley, and I feel terrible about not knowing that and finding it, and because I knew about Patriot, I did not know about Isaiah Bradley. That was a huge deal, and then seeing how they finished his story was probably like I actually shed a tear. Like that was a huge piece of it. But I think they turning Sam into Captain America and then also fleshing out Bucky beyond just gruff Captain America friend who was brainwashed and now redeemed. Like they fleshed out his character a little bit more. I know some people were like, "Oh, he didn't do enough," but I'm like, I think they did what they need to do with Bucky because this was truly Sam's story. Bucky is just kind of played the same role he did with Cap. He was his partner rather than the main person.
For sure.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. For me, I really dug the second and the fourth episode, but mostly the second episode I think is still my favorite. Even if it doesn't have any direct payoff, it's just one of those things where it's like, this second episode was what I was expecting from the show.
Yeah.
Which doesn't mean it's good or bad. It's just, it's like, oh, like I watched a trailer, like, yeah, this is what I was going to get. The chemistry between Sam and Bucky reminded me, as Zach said, Psych between Sean and
I stole
Gus.
your joke. I'm so sorry, Kevin.
Man, you always steal my jokes.
I know. I just see it. I'm like, where did I see that before? And Kevin,
yeah, because I told you about it before.
I know. I'm sorry. I didn't realize to look at the doc.
I said it before the TikTok. Remember, it was me all along.
It was me.
But I also enjoyed the overall pacing. The overall pacing of the episode and the social commentary of episode 2 as well. I think it was all really strong and prevalent there because that's where we also got introduced to Isaiah Bradley as well.
Yes.
So I mean, just episode 2 just felt like oh yes, like this is Falcon and the Winter Soldier because it has that buddy cop routine as well. And like like I said, it doesn't really have any direct payoff outside of like the Isaiah storyline. And some of the social commentary, but it's like, Sam and Bucky kind of just like, they kind of stop being main characters for a bit, and they kind of come back later on. But that's besides the point. Episode 2 and episode 4, great episodes.
Yes.
How about you, Zach?
For me, just like Sam Wilson. Sam Wilson finally like got the end of Endgame. He's handed the shield. It's like, it doesn't feel like mine. It feels like someone else's. And Cap is like, no, it's not. Watching him finally grow into that, like what Cap wanted him, like knew who he was, is really great. Like it always, like I know like the Flag Smashers like suck, but when he's talking to Carly in the building and he's just trying to talk to her as a person, he's treating her as a person, even though she's a terrorist and certain plot elements like have really made that hard to like believe in for the audience. He still wants to like understand like why she's doing it and not just writing her off as a villain, which is what really Cap would always do, like with Bucky and as a person. And watching that parallel really like that's one of the things I enjoy most about like the story of Captain America, like in the MCU, and with Sam Wilson, like watching him finally like grow into that role in his own right and doing it in his own way is very powerful to me.
For sure. What about you, Tyler?
All right. I know this isn't the first time that I've said it, and it won't be the last. But Zemo, I really like the time we got with this character. I didn't mind the retcon bits because of Daniel Bruhl's acting. You could tell he was just having a ton of fun.
Oh yeah,
with it, and because of that, I had so much fun watching it. And the MCU can use more villains that are fleshed out like this, to where we can connect as the audience. We can connect with that human side of the character, not necessarily support that villain. But we can connect with them, and and then I also wanted to I agree with what Ryan said about like this was definitely Sam's show, but they found a way to incorporate Bucky into it. I'm really glad that the focus was on Sam for this, because if Bucky would have had significant relevance, like at the same amount of what Sam was, that would have overshadowed the entire themes in this show. So that was good. I guess that would go to the writing and to the directing for that. So
can I just say about the whole Zemo thing? That entire plane conversation was probably the best thing that Marvel has ever produced.
Yeah, it's complete, James. It's comprehensive.
Complete, comprehensive.
It defines the African American experience.
But just ignore the lighting in that scene because it was weird.
No, it's fine. On that note, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about one thing we didn't like, but also some final thoughts about the show. See you in a bit. Starting a podcast? try a Podbean Unlimited hosting plan. It's what we use here at Committed Critics, giving us the opportunity to have our show on Pandora, iHeartRadio, and even Spotify. You can get your first month of unlimited hosting for free on us by going to podbean.com/committedcrits, just like our Twitter, or by clicking the link in the description. Podbean, the easiest, most affordable option to get started in podcasting. And welcome back to Committed Critics as we continue to review Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Remember, this is spoiler filled, so if you haven't watched the show, you should probably do that. So we just talked about one thing we did like about the show, but now we want to go just a little bit more negative, just a little bit. One thing we didn't like, unfortunately. Tyler, did you want to lead us off?
Yeah, sure. So the one thing I didn't like most, I would say, is the Sharon Carter power broker twist. And I have this in air quotes because it wasn't much of a twist, a twist if it can be called that.
Yeah, we kind of just knew it.
Yeah, she kind of has to be now.
Well, here's the thing. I thought it was gonna be Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Yeah,
at one point, because I was like, oh, she's in this. That must be the power broker.
She's about Hydra, dude.
Yeah, and that's one thing is I was hoping, that we would get that, like, it was just a red herring that Sharon was the power broker, and then maybe in the finale we'd get a big twist. But yeah, I thought the writing on the Sharon Carter stuff was really sloppy. More in the sense that we just needed more time spent with it if it was supposed to be this much of a game changer in the MCU, especially with the mid-credit scene. So yeah, it could have been a really great moment, but it was poorly executed in how they revealed it. I also didn't buy the threat of the power broker, and we could have used more in that area. Yeah, I know that Danny wants he talks about it on our podcast. He talks about wanting a show set during the 5 years of the snap.
Oh, that'd be great.
If we get some power broker stuff in there, that would be, that would give more gravity to the inclusion in this series. But
dumb question. Did Sharon get snapped away? I always forget.
We don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Same thing with Zemo. Yeah.
The show kind of ignores the blip, which is weird.
Right.
It doesn't ignore it per se, but it just kind of, because the whole point of the entire, like, the Flag Smashers thing is the fact that the whole blip kind of ruined how people were living, and so they're fighting back for it. So they don't really ignore it, but they ignore the MCU, the main characters. They'll say if they were blipped away, because we know Sam and Bucky were, but we don't know if anyone else was. Like anyone else, like we don't know if Isaiah Bradley was, or Sharon was, or the only people we can confirm in this show was that Sam, Bucky, and that one doctor dude who made the super serum were blipped away.
Out of, Spider-Man Far From Home, WandaVision, and Falcon and Winter Soldier, WandaVision seems to be the only one that directly is like, this is the emotional fallout of the blip. Yeah. Like, this is what happens emotionally to people with what's her face?
Monica
Rambeau.
See, I'd say this one dealt with it a little bit, not as significantly as WandaVision, but it dealt with it enough that I still felt the emotion. Like, I felt more the emotional sense of, hey, what do I do now that I have, like, my entire livelihood is gone? Like, people forgot about me for 5 years. Like, so what do I do now? Like, the world doesn't recognize.
To your point, Ryan, I think that's more exemplified better in the episode of Monica Rambeau in WandaVision, where she literally forms back in front of her eyes, and then she finds out her mom died. It's like, oh shit, that's heavy right there.
Yeah,
like I said, it does it better in different ways, in my opinion.
I think like to go on what Ryan's saying, I do think that the Sarah character in this, she talks, she verbally expresses, like, we went through all this crap the past 5 years, and you snap back just expecting the world to be how it used to be. That's not how things are anymore. But
yeah. And Oh,
Yeah,
go
it
on
still
again.
talks about the blip, but just like I don't know if it's like it's my review once again. Like it's good, but it can be better.
Yeah.
Like, I will say this: I'm grateful that the WandaVision and Falcon Winter Soldier have discussed the repercussions of the blip, because the problem I had with Far From Home is that it makes it a joke. Like, oh man,
Yeah.
my brother was like 10 and now he's 15. What am I supposed to do? I'm like, no, like this was a serious event. I don't want to see a dodgeball game where kids just popping back up in the middle of getting hit.
Actually, we're 21 now, technically.
That's some weird legal gray areas that we do not have the answers for in this podcast. But Kevin, what were your things you didn't like?
Oh, so yeah. So I mean, I kind of went over it already. It's just kind of like the setups and the payoffs don't really line up in this show. I do like the ending, and we have I do like the ending we have, and I think it works for the most part. But it doesn't make sense with the context of almost everything before it. With Sam being like, "Don't call them terrorists," and then it's just like everything we've seen so far is like they're terrorists.
They're kind of terrorists.
They literally spark terror in other countries to fill their own manifesto.
But you could also call,
They don't do a Robin Hood type thing or stealing from the rich and give to the poor, which I will talk about later. However, the end, the ending is not the problem. It is the setup. When Sam comes up and says, "I'm a black man wearing stars and stripes. What don't I know?" It's a big emotional moment for Sam, but it's like nothing really built up to that.
Right.
I didn't feel it. I mean, once again, I'm not the target for that speech, but I felt like it wasn't built up to properly. The whole speech, as good as it is, didn't have really a foundation, unfortunately, which primarily had to probably do with rewrites. And who knows?
Kevin, I think I disagree because, like you said, episode 2, you have this scene where he gets Sam Falcon gets racially profiled by 2 officers in the street,
right
outside of Isaiah Bradley, who I think he had just heard the story of Isaiah Bradley, who was taken advantage of and basically just destroyed by the American government. And he's had Isaiah Bradley not in his head, but he said okay, this is what it is like to be a black super soldier and how to deal with it. So by the time at the end, he finally accepts it and becomes Captain America, I think it does have the foundation. Like you said, it could be better, but I think the foundation is there.
And he also had that moment where he goes I don't have a super soldier serum. I'm not white. I'm just here, but I'm going to do what I can.
Right. And that particular part is actually really good. Like I said, it's like it doesn't have a strong enough foundation for it to work the way the show is wanting it to work. That's once again part of this. It's the problem with the setup, not the ending. Right. Also, John Walker getting a redemption.
Woof.
Not
Woof.
cool without one.
Woof.
What?
I think for me, I disagree. I think it does work, but the audience makes it work in the way they want it to based off what we're seeing, structurally and contextually. Yeah, you're correct. But I think for the sake
it's one of those things where it's it's the illusion of an ending where to us, the audience, and aesthetically, oh yeah, this is how an ending looks. This is how an ending feels. But in the context of the show, it's something's not right here. Something's not lining up.
Right, but the audience gets the ending then,
right.
Here's how I feel about the John Walker situation. He was never actually an evil character. He was brought up by America, which that's already problematic enough.
Right.
But the fact that he was made to replace Captain America, who's already been seen as the biggest hero. Yeah, you have Iron Man. Yeah, you have Thor, but Captain America was the symbol of America, and so that's kind of putting entire pressure and weight on this character. And he's not like Steve Rogers. He already made that case. But he also isn't he isn't the hero that Steve was. And then putting the super soldier serum, it makes him worse, yes. But he's kind of that in between. He's the product of America, but he also wants to do good. But he feels that he has to live up to Captain America no matter what. And,
right. No, it's a misguided view of what America is because he's part of the system.
So
that created him.
So I didn't feel like him getting like quote unquote redemption was terrible. I just felt it was definitely like kind of random and rushed at the last second.
Definitely, especially because when you compare it to like the scene where he kills the guy in cold blood in the open.
Right.
Like that's supposed to be the point of no redemption. So then he gets like nice swift little redemption at the end. It's like, this feels weird.
Like I think it should have been him. I think how his story should have ended is he does fight Sam and Bucky and the Flag Smashers, like kind of both. They do take him down. He's arrested and he's put on the raft but released because they want him to be part of the Thunderbolts. And it kind of goes. It's kind of a Suicide Squad thing. Like, we're going to use you to further our own things. You're going to be a U.S. agent. No one will know who you actually are, but that's what you're going to be doing. Yada, yada, yada.
What are we, kind of Thunderbolts?
We already got that nice fight with Sam and Bucky in episode 5 where they just really kicked the snot out of him, and that was kind of fun to watch.
I wanted to see the vibranium shield go up against the trash can.
We know what will happen. We know what will happen.
I wanted to see the shield slice through the trash can.
Remake the iconic image from Civil War, but with the trash can shield.
But I do agree also with the Sharon Carter thing. They went off the. I don't know what their plan with that is, because Sharon Carter is not supposed to be a villain. They already didn't have her end up with Captain with Steve, which was already kind of like, okay, whatever. You're trying to still push on this whole Peggy was his girl. But I'm like, then have her do something. You just you put her in one episode just to smack some people around, and then the rest of it she's just like being shifty until she's like, oh, I'm a power broker, and you're like, huh?
Yeah. I'm curious. I agree, it's sloppy as all hell. Like, but I'm curious to see what they're gonna do with her.
I mean, you're curious to see, but
rest in peace, the potential Agent Carter revival.
Yeah, no kidding. But we gotta move on soon. But for me, the one thing that I did not like was the Flag Smashers just suck, and that just kind of boils down to, I think, issues with production and the pandemic that Kevin will bring up in a couple minutes. But I agree with you guys. The Power Broker twist also kind of sucked because like that's not who Sharon Carter is. But I mean, like they're doing something different, which I'll give them props for. But I think the biggest thing that I have a problem with the series is there's really no heavy. Like the villain, there really isn't a villain. Like there's just multiple working parts, and that isn't a bad thing. I think it would be a lot more, like Tyler said earlier, if it was more narrowed and more concise about who, like what Sam was up against, it would be a little more well-rounded.
I mean, that's what both of the series have been, though, because there's been multiple working parts. Because WandaVision, you had Agatha behind the scenes, you had Director Hayward, you had Wanda herself.
Oh yeah, that's why Director Hayward sucks.
So I'm like, that's kind of what is going on in Falcon Winter Soldier. But I think they handle their moving parts more cohesively, whereas WandaVision was just like, it all came to a head. For some reason, Director Hayward just had white vision. For some reason, Agatha says she was doing something all along, but she really wasn't. And I still say the main person behind it all was Wanda. It was just her having to deal with her grief.
I mean, the show still addresses that, just not in a quite powerful way. It's like WandaVision, again, we have our review of that up there. You want to listen to it. It's a good show. It could be better. All right. So moving on, we're going to move on to our final thoughts, to which I say, #release the pandemic cut. Let's get it trending.
Please. We need to get it trending. Oh my God. This is the one kind of cut we actually need. Not the Ayer cut, not the Snyder cut. I mean, Zack Snyder, terrible story or terrible situation for him. So he deserves his own artistic vision. We've already talked about this. But this would be so good.
According to sources.
According to sources, yes. That
Ryan,
being said,
I just don't care about the pandemic cut, honestly. But
do you even know what it is, Ryan?
Huh?
Do you even know what it is?
You guys have told me about it, and I'm just like, okay, cool.
Kevin and I talked about it last night, and I was on the side of it. Like, I'm like, oh, it kind of be distasteful. But after watching the video that Kevin sent to me, and like it, I agree, Kevin. I think I will change my opinion I had last night. Like you are correct. It'd be very topical, actually.
Yeah. So essentially, as you may know, their Falcon and Winter Soldier had to be paused due to COVID, and then originally because the plot was going to include a pandemic of sorts. There's no like full details released. It's more all theory, and leaks. So let's see, what was I going to say? Yeah, so yeah, a lot of rewrites had to be done, mostly with the Flag Smashers and how they were handled in the show and represented. So this kind of part of the reason why the Flag Smashers feel a little weird and like, you know, it's just like, oh, I don't really know. Like, I know what they want, not sure why what steps they are taking or why that is leading to their goal. I mean, the first time we see the Flag Smashers, they break out of a building with 2 duffel bags. Did we ever learn what was in those duffel bags?
I thought it was super soldier serums, but anyway, sorry, go ahead.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't know.
Looking
medicine.
back, it's really weird. Thinking about that, I forgot about that episode, but yeah,
Pretty sure it was medicine. I mean, I think I'm the only person in this group who actually enjoyed the Flag Smashers. Because I think they were honestly decent enough villains. Like, I actually agreed with some of this. Like, here's the thing: I find them they were more Robin Hood like, but as with any group, it spirals out of control as they get more and more radical, and so they lost their way. They lost what the mission was, and you kind of see that because Carly goes through so much, she lost so much that she at that point, towards the end, she's very much like, I don't care anymore. We're doing this. People will be better off for it, and so like she loses her way. Like, that's how I felt about it. Like, I actually think the Flag Smashers were a solid group of like villains,
but it could be more solid. Because with the pandemic cut, or I'm coining it, the pandemic cut. So essentially, what the theory that we currently have right now that I think works really well is that during the blip, the 5 years. Towards the end, a pandemic has started, and like, you know, a virus is starting to get people sick, and it hurts people and kills them. So then the government creates a vaccine, and then as they're about to distribute the vaccine, suddenly everyone is blipped back. So now the population has doubled, and now they don't have enough vaccines for everyone. So then the government has shifted their plan. Instead of vaccines for everyone, they are picking and choosing who deserves to get the vaccines first. The Flag Smashers would then be not wanting, obviously not okay with this. So then they would be stealing the vaccines and then distributing them to people who need it most, or they believe they need it most. And so it kind of becomes a talk about like vaccine equity. Then the Flag Smashers, that would be their big Robin Hood moment, or, you know, through line that would that would support Sam's statement of like, they don't call them terrorists, because now they wouldn't be. They would be like, oh yeah, no, we totally get what they're trying to do. And I do think it'd be very topical without being distasteful to the audience at all, because it would still show the weight of a pandemic. Carly's mom, in terms of in the show's current context, she dies of tuberculosis. We don't see anyone say it on screen, the word tuberculosis. But that's just what we're told through like dialogue that's recorded elsewhere. But in the context of in this new context, she would die from the virus. That would spur more of like, we need to get this vaccine, or maybe the vaccine didn't work. We don't know this. We don't have the full details on that, but it also would make sense. Is like, so this is a terrorist organization. So if they were stealing vaccines, the government would want to keep it hush hush. So they would send, you know, Captain America and Battlestar to go through it, and not like an entire army. Right. So, which is what so they would understand like the way the current context of like the Flag Smashers are. It seems like, well, why don't they just send an army to get these guys? Like, this doesn't make sense. So now with this with this vaccine being stolen and distributed elsewhere, they would want to keep it on the down low and just kind of make sure it's a quiet operation. So I will link a video from like Nando V Movies in the description below, and that kind of goes over like more of like how he thinks it would have been based on the resources that he found. So none of it is confirmed that this is a real thing, except for like, obviously some of it was rewritten, reshot, and when you watch this show, you'd be like, yes, this looks different in quality.
Yeah, Kevin, I'm gonna have to watch that video, because I'll be honest, hearing that plot does not make me more excited to see that version. I'll be honest. Like
hashtag release the pandemic cut. Get it trending.
Pandemic cut. Woo!
I don't know about that one, but okay.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the same thing last night, Ryan. But the more I thought about it, I'm like, wow, actually, that'd be really, really.
I like the whole more displacement thing because that's an actual thing going on right now. We are displacing other.
I mean,
it would still
pandemic.
Like I get the pandemic thing, but like.
I think it would be both, like both the displacement and the pandemic. That would both be an issue.
Yeah, it's so much going on, and plus it wouldn't have been built up at all in the other movies. Because why would Peter and his group be going overseas if there was a pandemic going on? Why would
that's 6 months later?
Yeah.
Huh? I mean, even if it's 6 months later, even if it's 6 months later, like I mean, you still want to have them going on a full trip, just partying along. And if there was a pandemic, even if it was like 6 months later, if they're having a problem with vaccine distribution, that wouldn't have been a thing.
They're also all American.
They could have fixed it. Who knows?
I mean, that would have to be a super cure then. That would have to be.
Well,
like,
I mean, it's not COVID.
I mean, yeah, but you would be like, you take a shot and you're cured. So like, they would have had to cure all of Europe and America already at that point. And I just think that doesn't work as much as.
I mean, that's not necessarily true at all because like the vaccine equity, like most Americans probably would have a vaccine by the time Peter gets it. Most of like where they were in Europe, like probably had.
But if there's a problem, if there's like distribution
probably
problem,
third world countries or other ones that would not have access to the vaccine. That's what the show would have talked about.
I mean,
but anyway, moving on.
Moving on.
Tyler, what are your final thoughts on the episode?
I'm interested in what a binge rewatch will do to my views on this show. This show, and it's definitely noticeable between episodes 5 and 6. I think it should have been a 2-part series finale. Because when we just hop straight into action in episode 6, it's disarming to the audience, and it's just really like, okay, this is all that I'm watching is just a fight. But yeah, so I think that the show will work better as a binge rewatch. WandaVision worked really well in the episodic form because of what that show was. I mean, when you're going to have cover decades in TV and have a show that's a sitcom show, having episodes for that makes sense. This show would have made more sense as a binge. So I'm interested in seeing what that'll do. I'm also very excited for the development of the Thunderbolts, which seems like something we will be getting very, very soon. I'd love to watch the dynamic of a Zemo US agent team up, because we all know Zemo is not a fan of super soldiers, and US Agent is now a super soldier. So I do respect this show for touching on social injustices. However, I'd be more than happy for that to be a focus rather than a sidekick to the regular MCU action.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. And to add to your point of like the rewatchability and the binge, your action comment about like how it just jumps into action episode 6. They do that episode 5 too. Like it's like twice. So
that's true. Yeah, that begins with the fight between Sam, Bucky, and John Walker. Yeah.
Good. So I agree. I think it'd be interesting to watch it in a binge format.
For sure. And Ryan, any final thoughts from you?
They should have renamed it at the very end, Captain America and the White Wolf.
Yeah, I mean they see White Wolf more than Winter Soldier, I think. Actually.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
All right. So this has been Committed Critics, and thank you for joining us, Tyler. Where can people find you?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. If you want to listen to more about the MCU, you can find me on my podcast, Why Is with Ty and Dan, where co-hosts Danny and I cover MCU news and reviews every week. You can find Why Is on various podcasting platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pandora, and even our YouTube channel at Why Is with Ty and Dan. We're also on Twitter at Why Is with Ty and 1.
Because Danny's number 1?
So he says. We're still working that out. So there's a little bit of bias there. So
yeah, and this little crossover with Why Is continues on next week with Danny Vincent coming over to talk about how we would end SpongeBob. So be sure to tune in for that episode as well. This has been Committed Critics. You can follow us on Twitter at Committed Chris, as COMMITTEDCRITS. You can follow us on YouTube as well at Committed Critics, spelled the same there. It is here and everywhere else. You can support us on Patreon. Just $1 or $2 a month can support the show very much. And we special thanks to Davey Peppers from Game Mechanics for supporting the show on Patreon. You can check out his channel, Game Mechanics, on YouTube. Special thanks to our sound engineer, Jordan Smearman, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.